You're listening to Nocturnal Nightmares. While the world sleeps peacefully, we open the door to what lies beneath. The stories that surface in silence, the fears that rise in the dark. These are not dreams, they are reminders. Stay with us. And don't close your eyes just yet. Some nights, the silence in the Atherton Institute isn't peace. It's a held breath. The night the silence shattered, the night predators slipped into my shadowed kingdom, was the night I discovered that the treasures worth defending sometimes aren't encased in glass or illuminated by spotlights. It was also the night the darkness nearly swallowed me whole. Ilyas, that's my name. For half a decade, I've been the nocturnal custodian of the Atherton Institute of Art, a sentinel amidst slumbering canvases and dreaming sculptures. A tranquil post mostly. Me, the omnipresent eyes of the cameras and silent congregations of priceless artifacts. Until that particular October Vesper. The shift commenced like any other. I settled into the compact nerve center of security. The aroma of strong coffee mingling with the scent of aging paper from the novel I was navigating. The museum, vast and labyrinthine, exhaled its usual nocturnal sighs. The low thrum of climate control, the ancient timbers groaning softly under the weight of years and art. Midnight chimed, unseen, unheard, signaling the start of my first patrol. These solitary circuits through the Stygian galleries were a private communion. In the spectral glow of emergency lighting, the masterpieces shed their daytime formality, revealing intimate secrets only the dark and I were privy to. It was within the stark geometries of the modern wing that the night's fragile harmony fractured. A whisper of sound, anomalous, furtive, like fingernails scraping slate, somewhere deeper in the gloom. I froze, attuned, every nerve ending suddenly awake. It came again, sharper this time, chased by a sibilant curse, quickly stifled. My pulse quickened, a frantic drummer against my ribs. 5 years, marked only by the occasional phantom trigger of a motion sensor. This felt different, palpable, real. My radio felt heavy in my hand. Voice deliberately hushed, I keyed the mic. Elias, Atherton Institute. Auditory anomaly, modern wing. Investigating. Static hissed back. Acknowledged Elias. Proceed with caution. Support elements are ready. My flashlight remained dormant, a cylinder of potential light in my grip. I moved with practiced stealth, soles whispering on polished stone towards the origin of the disturbance. Closer now, the sounds resolved into low, urgent voices. Expedite, damn it, the clock is bleeding. Patience. This system has teeth we weren't briefed on. Easing around the sharp angle of a partition wall, the scene struck me with the force of a physical blow, chilling the marrow in my bones. 3 figures, swathed in black, coalesced like wraiths around the sanctum, housing our crown jewel, an invaluable Picasso, a temporary resident loaned from cloistered vaults. One wrestled with the complex locking mechanism of the display case. Another manipulated a flickering electronic device. The third stood sentinel, head pivoting with predatory vigilance. I shrank back into the umbra, thoughts colliding like panicked birds. This wasn't simulation. This was intrusion, violation. Training scenarios flickered, ghosts of preparedness mocking my sudden stark vulnerability. My hand instinctively sought the radio again, but doubt stayed it. A single transmitted word, overheard, and they would vanish, taking the Picasso, leaving only absence. A breath, drawn deep, settling the tremor. A decision, sharp and perilous. Stall them. Anchor them here until the cavalry arrived. Reckless, yes, but the alternative, letting them plunder this sanctuary, was unthinkable. I stepped from concealment, flashlight beam slicing the darkness. Hold security. They spun, startled apparitions caught in the sudden glare. A frozen tableau held for a heartbeat, then shattered into chaotic motion. The one by the case dove for a discarded duffel. The technician hurled his device. I twisted away as it disintegrated against the plaster behind me. The lookout surged forward, a blur of dark fabric and menacing intent. His first strike whiffed past, but the second slammed into my solar plexus, expelling air in a ragged gasp. I staggered, vision swimming. "The canvas! Now!" barked one of the intruders. Through watery eyes, I saw their frantic efforts redouble at the display case. Action was imperative. My fingers found the panic button, nestled on my belt, jamming it down repeatedly. Instantly, klaxons erupted, shrieking alarms that reverberated through the cavernous halls. Curses flew from the thieves, their movements growing desperate. I pushed myself upright, fueled by a surge of defiance. But the lookout was upon me again, brutally efficient, slamming me against the unyielding form of a nearby sculpture. Pain exploded along my spine. A sickening crack echoed. The art or my own architecture, I couldn't discern. "Secured," one voice crowed, triumphant. Through a haze of agony, I watched them reverently lift the Picasso from its violated enclosure. "No!" The word tore from my throat as I lunged, a futile gesture. The lookout intercepted me easily, pinning me hard against the unforgiving wall. "Disposition?" he grunted, voice distorted by fabric. The figure cradling the masterpiece glanced at me, then at his wrist. No time. Compromised identity. Neutralize him. The lookout nodded, a chillingly casual gesture. His hand dipped inside his jacket. A glint of cold metal caught the emergency lights. A firearm, time warped, stretching into an agonizing slow-motion horror. My heartbeat hammered against my eardrums, each thud punctuated by the symphony of my body's protests. This was the end then. An ignominious demise amidst silent beauty, dispatched by shadows I'd failed to contain. Then, slicing through the cacophony of alarms and the frantic pounding in my ears, sirens, distant at first, then rapidly swelling, converging. The thieves heard it too. The leader spat a curse. "Move! Exit strategy now!" The man holding me captive hesitated. The gun barrel still unwavering, aimed at my core. "He's seen us!" "Irrelevant, leave him!" With a guttural snarl of frustration, the lookout drove my head back against the wall one final, brutal time. Reality fractured, colors bleeding at the edges. I slumped earthward, consciousness fraying. Through the dimming tunnel of my vision, I saw them sprinting towards the emergency egress. The Picasso, a captured soul under one arm. A final surge of desperate energy propelled my hand towards the closest object. A compact, angular sculpture of twisted bronze. With the last dregs of strength, I flung it, a desperate, flailing prayer of metal, towards the retreating forms. Impossibly, it found its mark, tangling in the legs of the thief, burdened with the painting. He crashed down, the masterpiece skittering across the polished floor. "Leave it!" the leader screamed as the fallen man scrambled. The sirens were deafening now, a physical presence just beyond the walls. The trio vanished through the emergency door, scant moments before the main entrance exploded inward, revealing a phalanx of police officers, weapons leveled. The ensuing hour was a kaleidoscope of uniformed personnel, paramedics probing tenderly, investigators dusting for prints, the sharp tang of antiseptic. I learned later, drifting in and out of focus, that while the thieves had melted back into the night, their hurried escape had left a trail of crucial errors. The Picasso miraculously was safe, bearing only minor abrasions from its fall. As I sat cocooned in a metallic chill of an ambulance, an ice pack numbing the insistent throb in my skull, Director Thorne appeared beside me. Her face was drawn, pale beneath the harsh emergency lights, but her eyes held an intense, grateful fire. "Elias," she murmured, her cool hand closing over mine. "You saved it. You saved everything. There aren't words." A weak smile touched my lips. Duty called, Director. Yet, en route to the hospital for assessment, a deeper truth settled. In those frantic, terrifying minutes, it transcended mere duty. It was about confronting the assertion that might make right, that beauty and history could be casually plundered. The subsequent weeks unfurled in a strange blend of notoriety and recovery. More interviews, a formal commendation from the city, my face briefly gracing the pages of the local gazette. The Atherton Institute, spurred to action, fortified its defenses and offered me a role with greater responsibility. But every night now, as I trace my familiar path through the hushed galleries, the echoes remain. The spectral figures, the visceral struggle, the chilling certainty of imminent death. They walk with me. That night carved something into me. It illuminated the razor-thin membrane between sanctuary and peril, the terrifying speed at which equilibrium can shatter. My reverence for this place, for the silent communion with art in the lonely hours, persists, but it's tempered now by the stark awareness that the piece is conditional, that the test could recur without warning. And I know, with a certainty forged in fear and pain, that I would meet it again. Because the ultimate revelation of that violent night wasn't about the market value of paint on canvas. It was about the unexpected reserves of courage unearthed when everything precious is jeopardized. So, should you ever find yourself standing before that particular Picasso in the Atherton Institute, linger a moment. Consider the layers beneath the varnish. Remember that behind the velvet ropes and climate-controlled air, there are sentinels, keepers of the flame, willing to wager everything. Some legacies woven into the very fabric of who we are. demand nothing less than our fierce protection. They are worth far more than any price tag. The Serpent's Tooth beacon swept its incandescent blade across the night, a solitary eye glaring into the tempest's maw. Solitude had ever been my balm, the quietude of this stone pillar, my chosen sanctuary. Yet on that night, a night ripped raw by storm, peering through salt-scoured glass at a vessel laboring in the churning black, I could not fathom the terror my small act of salvation would unleash. Silas is my name, and for nigh on 20 years, the Serpent's Tooth has been my world. A life pared down to essentials, a life I embraced. The metronomic glide of the lantern's beam, the percussive roar of breakers shattering on the fang-like rocks below, the gull's desolate cries. These were my familiars. Until now. That night, November had clawed its way onto the calendar, dragging a malevolent nor'easter that punished the coast relentlessly. The ocean was a heaving slate-gray chaos. Waves, colossal and monstrous, slammed against the tower, vibrating the very stone beneath my feet. I'd weathered gales aplenty, but this one possessed a singular, vindictive spirit. Amidst my routine checks, ensuring the great lamp spun true, my gaze snagged on a flicker far out. A ship tossed like a child's discarded plaything, its navigation lights guttering phantasmally against the overwhelming dark. A cold fist clenched in my gut. Such seas offered no quarter. Instantly, the foghorn bellowed its mournful warning, and I amplified the lantern's glare, a desperate prayer cast into the void, hoping to steer them from the jagged periphery of my island domain. But the sea, indifferent and implacable, shoved the vessel precipitously towards the reef. Then, magnified through my spyglass, a shape detached itself, plunging into the maelstrom. Whether by choice or force, I couldn't tell. Primal instinct propelled me down the spiraling iron staircase, bursting out into the shrieking wind and needle-sharp rain. The cold was a brutal impact as I navigated the treacherous path to the small sheltered dock. The current delivered the figure towards me, a flotsam of humanity. Closer now, I saw a man, his struggles against the waves feeble, almost spent. I flung the lifebuoy, its rope snaking across the turbulent water, and hauled with every ounce of strength I possessed, dragging him onto the relative safety of the wet planks. He was a ruin, bleached skin stretched taut over bone, shivering violently, clothes shredded rags upon a skeletal frame. Yet breath rattled in his chest. "Gods, thank you," he choked, teeth chattering a frantic rhythm. Thought. I was gone. I hoisted him upright. Inside, warmth awaits. As we staggered towards the tower's reassuring bulk, a backward glance confirmed the ship's demise. Vanished, devoured whole by the tempest. Guilt pricked me. I should have done more, but the immediate need eclipsed regret. A life salvaged, demanding care. Within the stone embrace of the lighthouse, I settled him before the cast-iron stove in my modest living quarters. Swaddled in thick blankets, a mug of steaming tea cradled in his quivering hands, color began to seep back into his stark visage. Only then did I truly observe him. Younger than my first impression, perhaps 30 or so. His face, gaunt and hollowed, was dominated by deep-set eyes that flickered restlessly, absorbing the unfamiliar confines. An unsettling quality clung to him, an aura I dismissed as the residue of his ordeal. "I'm Silas," I offered, aiming for a calming tone. "Your name?" A beat of silence, a flicker in those haunted eyes, before he replied. "Reese, call me Reese." "Well, Reese, you're safe now. When the storm breaks, I'll radio the mainland, get you back." An expression, unreadable and swift, crossed his features. "No," he countered, the word too sharp, too sudden. He softened it immediately. "I mean, no need to trouble yourself. I can wait." I furrowed my brow. An odd response, yet understandable perhaps, given the shock. "No trouble at all, but we're marooned until this blows over regardless. Best get some rest." I led him to the compact guest room reserved for infrequent inspectors. As I turned to depart, his hand shot out, gripping my forearm with surprising tenacity. "Thank you," he repeated, his gaze intense, locking with mine. "I owe you." Sleep proved elusive that night. The storm, though waning, still moaned around the tower, and a profound disquietude had taken root within me. Reese, something about him felt dissonant. The ship, no other souls glimpsed in the water, no wreckage washing ashore, and his aversion to rescue. Eventually, exhaustion must have claimed me, for I awoke abruptly to faint sounds drifting up from below. My watch read just past 3. The wind had subsided to a low lament. Driven by curiosity, I rose. Nearing the galley kitchen, I heard it. A low, insistent murmuring. Reese, pacing agitated, whispering fragments to the shadows. "Can't let them find me. Must stay hidden. He doesn't know." I froze, a chill tracing my spine. Hiding? From whom? What didn't I know? A floorboard groaned beneath my weight. The muttering ceased instantly. "Silas?" Reese called, his voice jarringly bright. "That you? Just fetching some water." I entered the kitchen, schooling my features into neutrality. "All well, Reese? Thought I heard voices." He produced a laugh, thin and brittle. "Just myself. Old habit. This tower, it has an atmosphere at night, doesn't it?" I merely nodded, wary of speaking. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us before I mumbled an excuse and retreated. Sleep was now an impossibility. My thoughts a frantic scramble to assemble the fractured pieces of my enigmatic guest. Dawn broke gray and weary. I ascended towards the radio room, resolved to seek answers, contact the Coast Guard, inquire about missing vessels. But halfway up the stairs, a sickening sound stopped me cold. The sharp crack and splinter of equipment being destroyed. I burst through the doorway. Reese stood there, hammer clutched tight, bringing it down again and again onto the delicate workings on the radio set. He spun, eyes blazing with a feral light. "I can't let you call," he spat, voice ragged. "I won't go back." My hands rose placatingly. "Reese, calm down. Whatever this is, we can sort it out." Reason, however, had fled. He lunged the hammer, arcing towards my head. I twisted away, stumbling backward on the steep steps. The world became a dizzying vortex, ending with an explosion of agony as my skull connected hard with the unyielding metal. Consciousness returned in fragments, filtered through a haze of pain. I lay trussed, hands and feet bound with coarse rope, inside the cramped darkness of the supply closet. Reese paced outside the door. The frantic muttering resumed. "What's happening, Reese?" My voice was a dry rasp. He stilled, then peered in, his eyes unnervingly luminous. "Forgive me, Silas. Truly. You seem a decent sort. But I cannot go back. I will not." The truth unraveled over the next hour, delivered in disjointed bursts. Reese was fugitive, escaped from a prison ship caught in the storm's fury. Amidst the chaos, he'd shed his manacles and flung himself into the sea, choosing the ocean's brutal mercy over recapture. "They'll hunt for me," he whispered, trembling. "But they won't look here. Not yet. Need time. Need to think." I tried to argue, to show him the futility, the inevitable worsening of his plight, but desperation had rendered him deaf. Fear, his sole compass. Days bled into one another. Reese kept me bound, granting brief respites for basic needs. His paranoia intensified. Every creak of the old tower, every shift in the wind, sent him into high alert, convinced discovery was imminent. I watched, waited, conserving strength, seeking any lapse, any chance. But Reese remained hyper-vigilant. Hope began to fray as days stretched into weeks within my own lighthouse-turned-prison. Then another storm-lashed night, echoing the one that had brought Reese ashore, shattered the grim routine. The unmistakable oomp-oomp-oomp of helicopter blades sliced through the gale. Reese reacted instantly, a choked cry escaping him as he scrambled towards the lantern room, intent on extinguishing the beacon. In that sliver of distraction, adrenaline surged. I strained against the ropes, fibers biting into raw skin, until finally, blessedly, they gave. Agony screamed through my stiffened limbs as I lurched upright and staggered in pursuit. I found him at the summit, grappling frantically with the lamp mechanism. Without conscious thought, I charged. We collided, stumbling, wrestling perilously close to the unprotected edge of the gallery walkway. Rain and wind lashed us. In a final desperate surge, I thrust him away from the light. Reese stumbled backward, his balance lost. His eyes widened in stark terror as he pitched over the low railing. A scream, swallowed by the tempest's roar, marked his plummet to the unforgiving rocks far below. The helicopter, the delayed monthly supply run, touched down minutes later. The crew found me battered, near collapse, their shock palpable. It deepened when I led them, numbly, to the broken form sprawled on the jagged shore. Later, recounting the ordeal to impassive officials, the savage irony settled heavily upon me. Reese sought sanctuary here, but his fear transformed my refuge into a cage for us both. The Serpent's Tooth beacon is automated now. Efficiency, they called it. Progress. But I understand the unspoken truth. After Reese, the solitude seemed less sanctuary, more potential tomb. Yet I remain nearby, in a cottage overlooking the water, watching the beam sweep its familiar arc across the waves each night. This place, despite the shadows it holds, is irrevocably mine, and I comprehend now that the true monsters aren't always dredged from the depths. Sometimes they are born of the desperation and fear we carry within ourselves. The light still cuts the darkness, a steadfast promise against the vast unknown. And I remain its silent witness, vigilant still, ready for whatever the next tide may bring. The attic air hung thick and stagnant, a tapestry woven from dust motes and the ghosts of forgotten summers. I resisted this ascent, this archaeological dig through 30 years of accumulated life detritus. Mira, my wife, had levied the ultimatum months ago. A slow siege ending last weekend with a quiet declaration. The attic, or our marriage, so I knelt here, amidst the rafters' skeletal embrace, the lone ball painting harsh chiaroscuro across the slanted ceiling. My lungs protested the cloying dust. My hands, filmed grey, sorted through disintegrating cartons and the brittle remains of Christmases past. Everything whispered of mildew and decay. Cobwebs, delicate and ancient, clung like morbid shrouds. 3 hours hunched beneath the low beams, and my spine screamed rebellion. Most finds met the swift oblivion of black bin liners, periodicals yellowed beyond reading, shattered ornaments, woolens ravaged by unseen hungers. Few treasures warranted rescue. Then, nestled in the furthest, gloomiest corner, a stark anomaly. A box of dark, close-grained wood, secured with brass hinges dulled by time. No memory surfaced of placing it here. Mira's perhaps from a life before mine. My fingers left pale impressions on its dusty lid as I lifted it. The latch yielded with a soft, consenting click. Inside, swaddled in tissue paper the color of old parchment, rested a music box. Diminutive, perhaps 4 inches square, its carved wood darkened to near ebony. The finish, rubbed away at the edges, spoke of long handling. A sudden dryness seized my throat. Recognition, cold and sharp. This diminutive coffer, my Oma Elsie's gift, bestowed upon an 8-year-old boy. Lost, swallowed by the chaos of the 92 move. Father's thunderous rage echoed faintly. A family heirloom, tracing lineage through generations lost to sepia photographs. My hands, betraying me with a tremor, turned it over. The brass winding key, tarnished almost black, protruded from the base. An absurd impulse. The mechanism, surely seized with rust and neglect. Yet, the need to know gnawed. The key resisted, then turned with a faint, grinding protest. Once, twice, 3 revolutions, the lid sprang open. Where a porcelain ballerina once pirouetted, only a vacant brass spindle remained. The first notes emerged, hesitant, stumbling like an old man on uneven ground. Not the melody etched in memory. This was wrong. Green Sleeves, Oma's box had always played Green Sleeves. A tune of gentle melancholy, this unfolding air was alien, discordant, the notes catching, dragging, as if pulled from some reluctant, rusted throat. A prickling chill traced my skin, independent of the attic's ambient cool. The bare bulb overhead flickered, pulsed. The melody, however, found its footing, gaining a perverse confidence. Notes sharpened, coalesced into a pattern that resonated disturbingly. Something primordial, menacing. It tugged at threads deep within my psyche, dredging up phantom recollections. Cyclopean stones beneath starless voids. Robed figures chanting in tongues dead before the Tiber flowed. My fingers scrabbled, trying to force the lid closed. It resisted, held fast by an unseen force. The music swelled, insistent now, louder. My own hands, suddenly alien appendages, refused my command. The melody coiled around my thoughts like frigid wire. Footsteps then, ascending the attic stairs. Mira's voice muffled by the floorboards. "Elias, how's the excavation proceeding?" A frantic urge to shout, to warn her away, strangled in my throat. My mouth formed shapes, but no sound emerged. The trapdoor groaned open, framing Mira's concerned face. "Found anything interesting? I brought you some iced..." Her words trailed off. Her gaze locked onto my face, then dropped to the music box cradled in my rigid hands. Her eyes widened, pupils dilating in the gloom. Where did you find that?" Her voice trembled, thin as spun glass. "That's not... It can't be." The melody surged to a shattering crescendo, notes impossible for such a simple clockwork heart, notes that drilled into my brain like shards of ice. Mira recoiled. "No, Elias, no, put it down now." Still, I remained a statue, a prisoner within my own flesh. The music saturated the small space, drowning thought, drowning reality. Mira lunged, her hand outstretched, aiming to strike the box from my grasp. Her fingertips grazed the age-darkened wood. Silence crashed down. Absolute. The distant hum of traffic vanished. The light bulb winked out, plunging the attic into profound darkness. Something stirred in the blackness. A soft, chitinous scraping. The air grew heavy with the scent of damp earth, of things long buried and beginning to rot. Mira's flashlight beam sliced through the void, finding the music box still clutched in my hands. The brass spindle, the ballerina's vacant stage, was moving, twitching, growing. A dark, viscous fluid seeped from the mechanism, thick droplets falling onto my hands. They burned, a searing acid kiss. Still, I could not release the box. What emerged was no delicate dancer. Long, multi-jointed limbs unfolded, impossibly, from the tiny enclosure. How much of it resided within that small space? How could it continue to emerge, segment after segment? Mira screamed, a raw, tearing sound. The flashlight beam danced wildly, illuminating fractured glimpses of something utterly wrong, something that inflicted pain upon the optic nerves. Beneath my skin, where the echo had touched, I felt a sickening movement, a burrowing warmth spreading up my arms. Mira scrambled for the trapdoor, her foot catching on a forgotten box. She tumbled, the flashlight spinning away, swallowed by the darkness. The entity from the box was fully manifest now. A shifting, impossible geometry that filled the cramped attic space. All angles and segments that defied Euclidean space, that should not be. It turned towards Mira. She scrabbled backward on the floorboards, whimpering until her back hit the rough blank wall. I fought the paralysis, a desperate internal war. Muscles strained against invisible bonds. Capillaries burst in my eyes from the sheer effort. Suddenly, the hold snapped. I surged forward, the music box still fused to my burning hands. "Mira, the trapdoor. Go, now." She didn't need telling twice. She rolled, found her feet, and plunged down the ladder. Her footsteps hammered frantically down the stairs below. The thing's attention pivoted to me. Its impossible form flowed and reformed. A visual paradox that threatened to unravel my sanity. Only one course presented itself. With a surge of adrenaline-fueled strength, I slammed the music box shut. The entity shrieked, a sound that ruptured the air and made my ears bleed. It retracted, pouring back into the confines of the box like liquid shadow down a drain, folding, compressing, diminishing. The lid clicked firmly shut. The winding key ceased its slow rotation. I stood trembling in the oppressive dark. Blood trickled from my nose, my ears. My hands throbbed, blistered and raw where the fluid had touched. Mira's voice floated up from the safety below. Elias, Elias, are you all right? Stay down. My voice was a harsh croak. Don't come back up. I have to finish this. Destroy it before it could open again. The old coal furnace, a relic from a bygone heating era, squatted in the corner. Unused for decades, but its firebox remained sound. My shaking hands fumbled with the rusted latch. Inside, only dust and the intricate lacework of spiders. I placed the music box within, closed the heavy iron door, and searched for the emergency matches. The first snapped, brittle with age. The second flared to life. I fed it scraps of paper, slivers of cardboard coaxed through the grate, until fragile flames took hold. The heat built, unnervingly fast. The furnace's metal skin began to glow, a dull, angry red. From within the iron belly, something screamed. Not the alien horror of before. This was infinitely worse. A child's voice. My voice, thin and reedy from decades past, pleaded, begged, please don't. I'll be good, I promise. Don't burn me. I clapped my hands over my ears, but the sound was inside my head. Not real, not real. Other voices joined the chorus. Oma Elsie, my father, Mira, all screaming in unbearable agony. The furnace shuddered violently, rocking on its base. The door strained against its latch, bowing outwards. Black, greasy smoke poured from every joint and seam, carrying the stench of rendered fat, and something far older, something corrupt. The voices climbed to an impossible, brain-splitting pitch. The furnace glowed incandescent, white-hot. Then abruptly, silence fell once more. The light faded. An hour I waited, the silence stretching thin before daring to open the door. Inside, only fine grey ash and twisted, heat-contorted metal. No trace of wood, no hint of brass remained. My hands still burned. Later, examining them under the harsh glare of a lamp, I saw them. Thin, dark lines beneath the blistered skin, like invasive roots spreading. Mira refused to set foot on the attic stairs again. We sealed the trapdoor, postponing the remainder of the cleanup indefinitely. A silent pact to forget, but my hands, they continue to change. The dark lines lengthen daily, a subterranean cartography rewriting my flesh. And at night, in the deepest quiet, I hear it, faint, almost subliminal, at the very edge of auditory perception. That melody, that impossible ancient cadence. It's within me now, growing, waiting. Sometimes I see Mira watching me when she thinks I'm not aware. She notices the subtle shifts, the way my joints seem to articulate differently. The unsettling angles cast by my shadow in the lamplight. Soon, the music will reach its full strength. Soon, the transformation will be complete. And then, I hear it now, clearer, louder. My fingers twitch, an involuntary counterpoint to notes only I perceive. It won't be long. This document was recovered from Elias Thorne's personal computer. He and his wife, Mira Thorne, vanished approximately 3 weeks prior. The attic of their residence showed signs of a significant fire, though its origin remains undetermined. Investigators reported finding no evidence of a music box or an antique furnace. Neighbors asserted the attic space had been cleared out years before. The sole piece of physical evidence consisted of peculiar markings scorched onto the attic floorboards, intricate curves and symbols. Forensic analysis suggests these markings constitute a form of musical notation, yet no musicologist consulted has been able to identify its style, origin, or period. Several individuals who attempted to transcribe or perform the recovered melody have subsequently disappeared without a trace. The phone's shriek tore through the 2:30 a.m. stillness, a sound I despised, each late-night ring a Pavlovian trigger for dread. Darkness lay heavy in the bedroom as my eyes snapped open. My hand groped blindly, finding the nightstand, the accusing glare of the screen. Unknown caller. A hesitant breath, a press of the green icon. Then a voice, male, profoundly calm, utterly unfamiliar, spoke 5 words that sent my stomach plummeting. I am at your door. Too calm. A glacial stillness that felt obscene against the oppressive August heat wave. Sweat filmed my skin. The air conditioner had wheezed its last 3 days prior. I lived alone, 2nd floor. The city's distant nocturnal hum, a mere rumor this high up, no one, absolutely no one, should be calling, let alone be, at my door now. Who is this? The question emerged a dry rasp. Come to the door, Elias. The voice instructed, patient as stone. We need to converse. It's the middle of the night. Identify yourself. Simply approach the door. Elias. He possessed my name. A spike of pure adrenaline lanced through me. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my bare feet meeting the complaining creak of old floorboards. How do you know who I am? I know a great many things, Elias. The voice purred, an unsettling intimacy threading through the connection. That you stand beside your bed at this moment. That you wear only grey shorts against the clinging heat. That this apartment holds no soul but yours. A chill, sharp and violating, cut through the humidity. I instinctively backed away, eyes darting to the windows. The blinds were drawn, yet thin gaps at the edges offered slivers of the night outside. Could I be seen? What is it you want? I fought to keep the tremor from betraying me. Open the door, Elias. There are matters of consequence we must discuss. The police. I'm calling them. You won't, the voice returned smooth, unruffled. Not if you ever wish to learn the fate of Lena. Lena, my sister, vanished 3 years ago, swallowed whole by silence. The official investigation had run aground after 6 barren months, leaving behind only cold ashes. No leads, no trace, nothing. My hands began to tremble. What do you know about Lena? Everything awaits you, Elias. Just beyond the threshold. I moved cautiously to the bedroom doorway, peering down the short, shadowed hallway towards the apartment's main entrance. Faint security light from the corridor outside bled around its edges, defining its shape in the gloom. How can I be certain that you're truly there? This isn't some cruel fabrication. 3 sharp, percussive raps exploded against the wood, making me jump violently. Knock, knock, knock. Does that suffice? The voice inquired through the phone, a thread of dark amusement woven into the calm. My mouth felt like sandpaper. The sound hadn't come through the phone line. It had resonated from my actual door. He was physically out there. I stepped into the hallway. The floor cool beneath my bare feet. The phone felt slick, alien in my sweating palm. Tell me something about Lena, I demanded, voice tight. Tell me now, or I dial 911. The sand drains quickly, Elias. 30 seconds to decide, or I vanish, and the truth about Lena goes with me. How do I know you aren't lying? 25 seconds. Give me proof, something tangible, something only I would know. The day she vanished, the voice recited flatly, chillingly precise. She wore a sundress, the color of summer grass, sandals, silver. Around her neck, a delicate silver chain bearing a butterfly pendant. Your mother's gift to her for her 24th birthday. A vice clamped around my chest. Every detail excruciatingly accurate. Details sealed away, never released to the voracious public curiosity. 20 seconds, the voice intoned, a metronome marking dwindle in hope. I crept closer to the door, my free hand hovering near the deadbolt's cold solidity. 15 seconds. If I open this, how do I know you mean no harm? Had harm been my primary intent, Elias, this conversation would be quite unnecessary. 10 seconds. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Lena's face flashed behind my eyes. Her easy smile, the echo of her laugh, 3 years suspended in the agonizing void of not knowing. 5 seconds. I turned the deadbolt. The click seemed deafening in the charged silence. Time expires, Elias. Your choice. Gripping the doorknob, feeling the dampness of my palm against the cool metal, I took a ragged breath and pulled the door inward. An empty corridor greeted me. Vacant, silent save for the building's low hum. Hello? I stepped hesitantly over the threshold, glancing left, then right down the dimly lit passage. Nothing but stale, heated air and closed doors. Look behind you, the voice whispered, impossibly close, directly in my ear. I spun around, the phone slipping from my nerveless fingers to clatter onto the floorboards. There, standing inside my living room, was a man, tall, broad-shouldered, immaculate in a suit of severe black that whispered of quiet expense. His face was all sharp angles, clean-shaven, his gaze unnervingly direct. A smile touched his lips, thin and cool, failing utterly to reach his watchful eyes. How did you... The question withered on my tongue. The fire escape, he stated, his voice the same calm instrument I'd heard on the phone. Your bedroom window lacks a functioning lock. An oversight, Elias. A significant one. I instinctively retreated towards the still open front door. Stay, he commanded, his tone soft yet absolute. You need to hear this. He reached inside his tailored jacket. I tensed, anticipating a weapon. Instead, he produced a relic, an old anonymous flip phone. He thumbed it open, pressed a button. Lena's voice, fractured and weeping, suddenly filled the tense air. Elias, if you get this. A ragged sob tore through the recording. I'm sorry, so sorry. I never wanted. You have to. He snapped the phone shut, abruptly silencing her desperate plea. Recorded 2 days subsequent to her disappearance, the man said, his gaze unwavering. Do you wish to hear the remainder? My legs felt like water. I leaned heavily against the doorframe for support. Who are you? Someone who possesses the truth. He slid the flip phone back into his pocket. Someone offering answers. But answers, Elias, carry a price. First, we must discuss your willingness to meet it. He took another measured step into my space. Your sister unearthed something. Sensitive. Something rather large. Those implicated could not tolerate exposure. But they refrained from the ultimate sanction, Elias. Lena is alive. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. I slid down the wall until I was sitting heavily on the floor. Where? Where is she? A complex situation. He crossed to my worn sofa, settling onto it with an unnerving proprietary ease, crossing one leg elegantly over the other. Her captors wield considerable power, influence stretching into shadowed corners. Extraction will prove challenging and not without significant cost. Money? Is that what this is about? Eventually, but initially I require your assistance. A small service, leveraging your particular professional skills. What kind of service? He reached into his jacket once more. This time he withdrew a plain manila envelope. Your position at the financial institution grants you certain privileges. Access to client data, transaction logs, wire transfer histories. A cold dread bloomed low in my gut. I can't provide that information. It's illegal, confidential. More illegal than unlawful entry into a private residence in the deep of night? That sterile smile flickered again. We all transgress boundaries, Elias. Motive is the crucial differentiator. Your transgression serves to save your sister's life. He extended the envelope towards me. I didn't move to take it. How can I trust this? That she's truly alive? That recording? It could be years old from before. Consult your phone, he suggested mildly. Trembling, I retrieved my fallen device from the floor. A new text message glowed on the screen from that same unknown number. It contained a video file, 10 seconds long. Lena, seated in a stark, featureless white room. In her hands, she held today's Tribune. The date clearly visible. Her face was drawn, thinner than I remembered, exhaustion etched into her features, but undeniably, miraculously alive. She spoke my name, Elias, then stated the current date, her voice strained but clear. My hand shook so violently, I nearly dropped the phone again. Filmed 4 hours ago, the man confirmed, his voice impassive. A live video feed can be arranged should further validation be required. But first, the envelope. Slowly, feeling strangely disconnected from my own limbs, I pushed myself up from the floor. I crossed the space between us and took the offered envelope. Its weight felt immense. Inside, a typed list, names and account numbers. What must I do? Penetrate these accounts. Compile a meticulous record of every transaction exceeding $50,000 originating from or terminating in these accounts over the past calendar year. Dates, precise sums, destination accounts and institutions. You have 48 hours. The bank's security protocols Algorithmic surveillance. They're designed to flag precisely this kind of unusual access pattern. You manage substantial portfolios, Elias. Reviewing historical data is well within your operational parameters. Discretion will render you invisible. He rose fluidly from the sofa, smoothing the lapels of his jacket. One final critical point, he added, his eyes locking onto mine. Resist any impulse towards misplaced ingenuity. No digital breadcrumbs left for discovery. No coded alerts to colleagues or authorities. Any such attempt, however clever you believe it to be, and Lena vanishes again. This time, irrevocably. He walked calmly to my front door. I watched him frozen, unable to move or speak. 48 hours, he reiterated from the threshold. I will contact you again with instructions for delivery, and Elias. He paused, turning back slightly, that chillingly empty smile touching his lips one last time. You really should secure that bedroom window latch. One never knows who the night might usher in. The door clicked shut behind him, plunging the apartment back into a silence now thick with menace and the oppressive weight of the envelope in my hand. Almost immediately, my phone vibrated again. Another text message, another video. Lena again, this time from a slightly different angle. Tears streamed down her face as she mouthed silent, desperate pleas for help. The timestamp indicated it had been recorded just 2 minutes ago. I collapsed onto the sofa, the manila envelope crackling under my grip. The typed names and numbers blurred through a sudden hot welling of tears. Far off in the urban sprawl, a siren wailed its mournful lament. Dawn remained 3 hours distant, an eternity away. In 48 hours, I would either possess the forbidden data this phantom demanded, or Lena would be lost to me forever, consumed by the shadows that had already held her for 3 years. I reached for my laptop, its familiar glow illuminating my strained face in the dim light. Logged into the secure banking portal, the account numbers on the page seemed to pulse with a sinister energy. Each keystroke felt heavy, like another descending step into a profound darkness. Yet, what alternative existed? None. The first hesitant gray of dawn began to stain the eastern sky beyond my blinds. I remained hunched over the keyboard, the man's warning echoing in my mind. Resist any impulse towards ingenuity. But ingenuity was my currency, navigating the labyrinthine systems of finance, understanding its hidden pathways, its vulnerabilities. Perhaps there was a way. A trace element, subtle enough to bypass the captors, yet visible only for the keenest, the right eye. A signal flare launched into the digital void. It was a terrifying gamble, one that could save Lena without full capitulation or condemn her utterly. The cursor blinked, patient, insistent. The first account number waited. With a deep, unsteady breath, I typed it in. This was merely the overture, I understood, with chilling certainty. The man in the black suit, the purveyor of impossible choices, would return. There would be further demands, deeper compromises, darker paths to tread. But Lena lived. That single incandescent fact reconfigured my entire universe. I replayed the first video clip, freezing the frame on her face. Fur resided there, stark and palpable, but beneath it, I saw something else. a flicker of defiance, a resilience not yet extinguished, a fight still being waged in whatever sterile room held her captive. "I'm coming," I whispered to the illuminated screen. The words a raw promise in the quiet room. "Hold on, Lena. Just hold on. I'm coming." The account data began to flood the display. A torrent of numbers, dates, destinations, a river of digital information. Somewhere within this complex, sterile labyrinth lay the truth, the explanation for my sister's vanishing, the key to her cage, and I would unearth it, whatever the cost. Morning light crept insistently through the gaps in the blinds, illuminating dust motes dancing in the heavy, unmoving air. Chicago stirred awake outside my window. For its millions, another ordinary Tuesday was beginning. My ordinary life, however, had irrevocably fractured at 2:30 a.m. with the shriek of a phone. Now, with the clock ticking relentlessly down from 47 hours, the question wasn't if I was willing to become a criminal to save my sister. The answer had solidified in my soul the moment I heard her name whispered like a threat over the line. It was already done. I initiated the download of the first set of transaction records. This descent, this complicity, this was my reality now. God help me. A ripple of mirth, thin and sharp, sliced through the night's deep hush, jolting me from sleep. For one disoriented second, a smile touched my lips. My daughter, surely, slipped from her bed for some secret game. Then awareness struck, a cascade of ice water through my veins. Two facts crystallized with chilling certainty. That laughter wasn't my child's, and it originated from within our walls. I am Elara Vance, sole guardian to 5-year-old Cora. 6 months we'd nested here, in this pocket of suburban stillness, seeking quiet harbor after the wreckage of my marriage. Until this night, settling in had been our most pressing trial. How foolishly I'd believed in safety. Lying here now, rigid in bed, while that uncanny glee echoed through our supposed sanctuary. The bedside clock pulsed digits. 3:17, an ungodly hour, the seam between night and not yet dawn, what my grandmother had termed the time of thin veils. I'd always dismissed such notions. Now, a fear older than reason gripped me. The laughter chimed again, nearer, like a child's joy, yet warped, as if scraped from a broken music box. Motherhood's fierce instinct finally broke my paralysis. Cora. I had to reach Cora. I eased myself from the sheets, limbs stiff with dread, my bare feet kissing the cold floorboards with utter silence. The corridor stretched ahead, a gullet of shadow. Light felt like betrayal. If something shared our home, darkness was my only shield. As I crept forward, the laughter died. The ensuing silence felt heavier, pregnant with unseen threats. Outside Cora's door, my hand hovered over the knob. A shaky breath, then I pushed inward. Lunar light, strained through gauze curtains, silvered the small bed. A gasp hitched in my throat. The duvet thrown back, the mattress holding only the impression of her small form, vanished. Cora? My whisper was a ghost sound, lost almost to myself. "Sweetling, where are you?" Only silence answered. Deeper into the room I ventured, checking beneath the bed's frill, parting clothes in the closet. Emptiness. Then from below, a low groan of timber. My heart hammered against my ribs. Down the stairs I went, each step a careful agony. The lower level swam in obscurity, save for a weak pulse of light throbbed from the living room. Reaching the bottom, I saw it, and the ice in my veins refroze. The front door yawned open, spilling chill air and the scent of damp earth. A trail of muddy sigils marred the polished floor, leading toward the living room's glow. The source of the light, Cora's little sprite nightlight, a beacon far from its usual perch on her bedside table. What was it doing here? Approaching the living room archway, every nerve screamed, retreat, flee, call for aid. But Cora, I couldn't abandon Cora. Steeling myself, I edged around the frame. My heart seized. There sat Cora, cross-legged on the rug, back towards me, clad in her familiar constellation pajamas. Relief washed over me, fierce and fleeting, until I saw she wasn't alone. Across from her, a presence. Vaguely child-sized in the dim glow, yet fundamentally wrong. Limbs like stretched taffy, a head swollen and malformed. They seemed engaged in quiet play, small objects passing between them. As I watched, rooted by disbelief and horror, Cora emitted a giggle. Her sound, yes, but off-key, brittle, with an ancient knowing utterly alien to my 5-year-old. Then the other echoed it, a grotesque mimicry, the very sound that had clawed me from sleep. I knew it now with sickening dread. A choked breath must have escaped me. Suddenly 2 heads swiveled. Cora's face was a porcelain mask, eyes vacant, as if adrift in somnolence. But the creature... Oh, the faint pixie light caught its features, a face sculpted by nightmare, eyes like obsidian pools reflecting the lamp's faint glow. Nostrils like raw punctures above a mouth stretched into a rictus grin that split the crude visage impossibly wide, hinting at darkness within. "Mama," Cora intoned, voice stripped of warmth, flat as slate. "Come play with us." The entity nodded, its bulbous head lolling on a too thin neck. Its grin, impossibly, stretched further. "Yes, Mama," it lisped, stealing Cora's exact cadence. Her sweet inflection made monstrous. "Come play." I stood frozen, mind recoiling, scrambling for denial. A dream, a feverish hallucination. But the draft whispering from the open door carried the real reek of mud. The soft pulse of the sprite light was undeniably present. Reality pressed in, sharp and terrible. "Cora," the name tore from my throat, rough with fear. "Darling, come here. Come to Mama." Cora remained inert, her blank gaze fixed on me. The thing, however, began to unfurl. It flowed upwards, limbs elongating with sickening fluidity, casting a distorted, dancing shadow. It loomed over my daughter, over the room. "She stays," it hissed, still wearing Cora's voice like a stolen coat. "Ours now." Primal fury surged past terror. My child. Nightmare or not, this presence threatened her. I launched myself forward, intent on snatching Cora, on flight, The instant I crossed the threshold, the sprite light died. Absolute blackness swallowed the room. Cora screamed, a raw, visceral sound that fractured the dark and my heart. Cora! Frantic hands swept the void, brushing against something slick, cold, yielding beneath my touch. It writhed. Revulsion sent me stumbling backward onto the floor. Abruptly, the overhead lights flared, blinding. Blinking away the glare, my vision swam, then cleared. I saw Cora by the wall switch, hand still hovering near it, her brow furrowed in sleepy confusion. "Mama?" Her voice small and bewildered, blessedly her own. "What happened? Why are we down here?" A frantic scan of the room. Empty, the mud tracks gone. The front door, shut tight, bolted, as if the horror had been wiped clean. A fever dream, dissipated by light. I scrambled to my feet, snatched her up, crushing her warm, solid little body against mine, inhaling the familiar, grounding scent of lavender shampoo and childhood. Tears stung my eyes. "It's all right, sweetling," I murmured, the lie thick and necessary in my mouth, soothing myself as much as her. "Everything's fine. Just sleepwalking." But the phantom grin was seared behind my eyelids. The echo of that stolen laughter, the remembered clamminess of that brief, repulsive contact, indelible. I carried her back upstairs, my gaze darting into every shadow, every darkened corner. Tucking her beneath the covers, her gaze met mine, wide and clear with lingering sleep. "Mama," she breathed, a sleepy whisper. "Who was the boy I played with?" Ice traced its way down my spine. "What boy? Little star?" Cora yawned, her eyelids heavy. "The funny boy. He looked all stretched. Said he wanted to be my friend. Said he'd come back to play again." I sat beside her, stroking her hair until her breathing deepened into sleep. My own breath hitched in my chest. What abomination had breached our sanctuary, and its promise to return? As the first weak light of dawn bled grey at the edges of the blinds, resolve hardened within me. We couldn't remain. This house, this town, felt tainted, compromised. Suitcases yawned open on my bed. Clothes, necessities, fragments of our life stuffed hastily inside. Escape. Anywhere but here, as soon as Cora woke. Zipping the final bag, my reflection in the dresser mirror snagged my eye. A flicker of movement behind me? No. In the glass, for a suspended heartbeat, I saw it, that impossible crescent grin, those void dark eyes staring out from the silvered surface. I whirled around, heart leaping into my throat. Nothing. The room was empty, still, turning back slowly. My own face stared out, pale, haggard. But as I watched, transfixed in horror, its lips peeled back into a smile that wasn't mine, a grotesque echo. "See you soon, Mama," it whispered, in Cora's perfect, innocent tone. The mirror fractured, a starburst of cracks spreading silently from the center of the reflected grin. I stumbled back, a silent scream locked in my throat. In that chilling instant, the truth bloomed, cold and absolute. We could run, but distance meant nothing. It wasn't the house that was haunted. It was us. Whatever had found us in the night wasn't finished. This wasn't the end of the nightmare. It was merely the beginning. Route 87 ribboned through Stygian pine forests, my headlamps incising a solitary passage through the deepening night. 3 hours swallowed by the drive from my cousin's nuptials. 2 more stretched ahead when a flicker snagged my attention. An old pickup listing heavily onto the shoulder, its hazard lights pulsing faintly, erratically, against the oppressive dark. A primal urge surfaced. Slow down. Offer aid. On desolate stretches like this, wasn't that the unwritten code? Yet, as my foot eased pressure on the accelerator, a discordant detail emerged. Shapes, canine and numerous, milled around the derelict truck. Illumination caught them fleetingly. Large dogs, moving with a strange, deliberate cadence near the vehicle. Both truck doors gaped wide, voids in the metal skin, but no human form was visible. Only the dogs, their movements less like aimless wandering, more like a restless patrol, a perimeter being held. I feathered the brakes, bleeding speed, but retaining enough forward impetus for a swift departure if necessary. It was then, as the arc of my headlights swept further, that my heart gave a sickening lurch. Behind the tailgate, a silhouette detached itself from the deeper gloom. Unmistakably human, yet deliberately withdrawn, hugging the shadows. Not someone seeking rescue, but someone poised. The dogs registered my approach. A collective turn of heads, their restless pacing arrested. Caught fully in the glare now, their posture shifted, taut, expectant. Not strays, not lost companions. These animals were instruments, awaiting a cue. My grip became a vice on the steering wheel, a precipitous choice made in the gut. Instead of yielding further, my foot found the floor. The engine answered with a surge. The dogs reacted, converging toward the tarmac, but the momentum was mine. I shot past. A glance in the rearview mirror captured the shadow stepping clear of the truck, an arm rising. A wave? Something else? Impossible to tell as the tableau dissolved instantly into the receding blackness. My pulse hammered against my ribs. Reaching across the passenger seat, my fingers closed around my phone. The screen confirming my fear. No service. Naturally. This vein of the highway was infamous for its dead zones. Reporting this would have to wait for civilization. 20 minutes later, the neon glow of a gas station in Havenwood beckoned. An oasis of light. My hands, I realized, still trembled as I dialed 911. The dispatcher listened, her tone shifting to sharp attention when I described the dogs. It seemed my call was not novel. Others had reported unsettling encounters involving trained canines along this very route. While patrol units were dispatched, the station attendant, a woman named Martha, with knowing eyes and steady hands, wordlessly placed a steaming mug of coffee before me. "You listen to your gut. That's the important thing," she murmured, her expression somber. Been a few incidents. Folks pull over, thinking someone's stranded, and walk right into something ugly. She elaborated, painting a picture of calculated deception. Strategically disabled vehicles, doors invitingly open, the dogs serving as both lure and intimidation, while figures remained concealed, assessing potential victims. Thus far, no grave injuries, but numerous harrowing escapes. The dogs are the latest twist, Martha stated, topping off my coffee. Plays on decency, makes a person pause, worry about the animals, gives the watchers time to size up the car, see who's inside. Dispatch called back before I'd finished the coffee. The truck had vanished by the time officers arrived, leaving only disturbed gravel and tire tracks indicating recent stops. They logged my detailed description, adding it to a thickening file. Martha waved away my attempt to pay, pressing a small card into my hand. Instead, safety guidelines for lone travelers, courtesy of the county sheriff. Never stop for breakdowns after dark out here, she recited, tapping a bullet point. Call it in when you're somewhere safe. Trust that feeling in your stomach. Before letting me leave, she ensured my tank was full and keyed her station's number into my contacts. We're open round the clock, she assured me. Anyone feels unsafe, they call us. We contact the sheriff, or we send our own bonded tow truck. The remainder of the journey home was fundamentally altered. Vigilance became my co-pilot. Every vehicle parked roadside provoked a flicker of unease. But now, procedure replaced panic. Note the specifics, drive on to safety, report. Later, delving into roadside safety forums online, I found the pattern Martha described echoed in warnings from other regions. The canine gambit, exploiting empathy for animals, was an insidious, emerging threat. Local news outlets began covering the incidents, focusing not on inciting fear, but fostering awareness. Martha, interviewed, became an unlikely symbol of roadside guardianship. Her gas station was designated an official safe haven, joining a network of businesses along Route 87 committed to traveler security. Patrol visibility increased. Authorities collaborated with animal control, investigating reports of dogs used in suspicious circumstances. New signage punctuated the lonely stretches. Report suspicious activity and do not stop for stranded vehicles. Call emergency services. A month passed. Driving that same route again, I saw the changes. Newly installed emergency call boxes gleamed at intervals. Martha's station sported fresh paint and a prominent sign. Safe stop location. The highway, once a conduit of isolation, now felt subtly overseen. Stopping in, I found Martha patiently instructing a young driver, gesturing towards a wall map dotted with verified assistance points. Know your safe zones, she was advising. Know who to call, and listen. Always, always listen to that inner voice. The encounter reshaped my understanding of assistance. Compassion hadn't diminished, but naivety had. Now, caution tempered goodwill. My phone hosts an emergency services app. I know the geography of safety along my frequent paths. True help, I learned, sometimes means driving past, means relaying crucial information to those equipped to intervene without becoming vulnerable yourself. Just last week, near my exit, I spotted a sedan with a flat. Instead of pulling over, I dialed the highway patrol from the next safe turnout. Within minutes, their dedicated roadside assistance unit was en route. Professionals trained for the unpredictable nature of the open road. A dissonance struck the moment my gaze fell upon the derelict automobile, a jarring note in the forest's symphony. Its doors gaped, flung wide in a silent scream. the vehicle's intimate contents strewn across the loamy earth as if violently expelled. Yet, it was the profound hush, an unnatural stillness blanketing the Adirondack woods, that truly spider-webbed ice across my skin. Even the avian chatter seemed suspended, trapped in the amber of apprehension. My expedition had commenced under the auspices of an early dawn, a simple pilgrimage into nature intended to cleanse the residue of a punishing work week. A day hike, nothing more strenuous than the trail map promised. Moderate, manageable. My pack bore only essentials: water, a handful of nuts and dried fruit, the reassuring weight of my multi-tool knife. Autumn air, crisp and invigorating, kissed my face. The kind of day that sharpens the senses and affirms the simple grace of breathing. Hours unspooled uneventfully. Pine-sharp air filled my lungs. The rhythmic percussion of boots on fallen leaves a grounding mantra. Slowly unknotting the tension coiled in my shoulders. This tranquility, precisely this, was the balm I sought. Then, round in a curve choked with ferns, the idyll shattered. There it rested, nestled in a small sun-dappled clearing just shy of the path. A sedan, cerulean blue, faded beneath a patina of dust and evergreen needles. Initially, it projected an aura of long abandonment, weeks perhaps. Closer inspection, however, revealed the fresh bite of tire treads in the yielding soil. A cautious approach, a tentative, "Anyone here?" lobbed into the void. Only the unnerving quiet answered. The driver's door yawned open, keys dangling vulnerably in the ignition. Through the rear window, a valise lay breeched, garments spilling forth in disarray, suggesting a frantic, desperate search. Nearby, tossed onto the moss, lay a woman's handbag, its contents scattered like runes. A tube of crimson lipstick, a wallet, a mobile phone, its screen a fractured mirror. My pulse hammered against my ribs. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a violation. Something far more sinister. I retrieved the phone, its potential lifeline extinguished, utterly dead. The wallet offered a name, an identity. Clara Bellwether, 28, Albany. Her license photograph captured a smile, dark hair cascading around arresting green eyes. A phantom gaze seemed to meet mine across the divide of time and circumstance. Then, the footprints. Not the measured cadence of a hiker, but a chaotic scrawl leading away from the car, plunging deeper into the arboreal maze. They spoke of flight, of terror, zigzagging erratically into the dense undergrowth. A crossroads presented itself. Retreat to the trailhead, alert the authorities, the sensible path, or follow. What if Clara Bellwether lay injured, disoriented, somewhere within this green labyrinth? Each tick of the clock felt amplified. Against the counsel of reason, my feet began to trace her panicked journey. The tracks guided me from the marked trail into a thicket that snagged my clothing and etched fine, stinging lines onto exposed skin. The path dissolved and reappeared, forcing me to backtrack, to hunt for the faint impressions in the duff. The woods seemed to draw inwards, trees looming like silent, judgmental sentinels, the air growing heavier, darker. An insistent prickle crawled across the nape of my neck. The distinct sensation of being observed. Perhaps 20 minutes dissolved in this tense pursuit before I reached the murmur of a small stream. Here, The footprints ceased abruptly at the water's edge. My eyes scanned the opposing bank, searching for any sign of their continuation. Nothing. Clara Bellwether had evaporated, swallowed whole by the wilderness. That's when the sound fractured the silence. A dry twig snapping somewhere behind me. I spun, my heart leaping into my throat. Hello? The word felt fragile, swallowed by the immensity of the forest. Is anyone there? Silence answered, pregnant and watchful. Then, another crackle, nearer this time. My hand instinctively sought my phone. A useless gesture in this signal dead zone. The multi-tool knife felt absurdly small, slick with sweat in my grasp. Another snap, and another. A presence, unseen, was circling. I'm armed! The declaration was a desperate bluff. My voice straining for a conviction I didn't possess. Show yourself! A protracted stillness followed. Then, from the concealing shadow of a broad oak, perhaps 20 feet distant, a figure materialized. Not Clara Bellwether. This man was tall, powerfully built, clad in camouflage that melted seamlessly into the dappled light and shadow. A dense beard obscured his features, but his eyes were visible. Chips of frozen river water, devoid of warmth, fixed upon me with an unnerving, predatory intensity. You shouldn't have lingered, he uttered, the voice a low growl that resonated through the very timber surrounding us. A reflexive step back nearly sent me tumbling into the brook. The car. I found a car back there, just trying to see if someone needed help. He mirrored my retreat with a deliberate step forward. No help needed here. Time for you to leave. Now. But I couldn't. Clara Bellwether's face, smiling from the plastic rectangle, burned in my mind's eye. What happened to her? The question escaped, bolder than I felt. A semblance of a smile touched his lips, a chilling gesture that never reached those glacial eyes. Curiosity's a dangerous burden out here. Another step closer. My grip tightened on the inadequate knife. It was then I heard it, a faint, muffled sound, perhaps a cry, originating from somewhere beyond him. The man's head snapped toward the noise, his focus momentarily fractured. In that sliver of opportunity, fueled by a potent cocktail of terror and instinct, call it courage, call it folly, I bolted. I crashed through the undergrowth, branches clawing like skeletal fingers, treacherous roots grasping at my ankles. Behind me, the heavy tread of pursuit, closing the distance with terrifying speed. My lungs seared, muscles screamed in agonized protest, yet raw fear propelled me onward. Time lost all meaning. It could have been minutes. It could have been an age. Then, abruptly, miraculously, I burst from the suffocating density onto the main trail. And there, not 50 yards distant, stood a cluster of hikers. Help! The cry tore from my raw throat, ragged and desperate. Please help me. They turned, expressions shifting from surprise to alarm as they registered my frantic, disheveled state. A man in a crimson jacket moved toward me, extending a hand. I risked a backward glance, bracing for the sight of my pursuer emerging from the tree line. Nothing. Only the silent, deceptively peaceful woods. The man in crimson grasped my arm, a steadying anchor as I swayed, legs threatening to buckle. "Are you okay?" "What happened?" The story tumbled out. A chaotic torrent. The violated car, Clara Bellwether, the bearded man, the chilling encounter. Concerned glances were exchanged amongst the hikers as I stammered through the narrative. "We have to call the Rangers," one declared, already producing a satellite phone. As the call was placed, I sank to the earth, the last vestiges of strength deserting my limbs. Adrenaline ebbed, leaving behind a residue of tremors and nausea. Yet, beneath the receding tide of fear, a nascent resolve began to crystallize. Clara Bellwether was still captive within these woods, as was the man who held her fate. The ensuing hours were a confused montage. Rangers materialized, followed by state police cruisers. I recounted my experience repeatedly, each iteration lending it a sharper, more nightmarish clarity. They located the sedan precisely where I'd indicated, but of Clara Bellwether or the bearded man, there was no trace. As twilight bled into true night, the search was suspended until dawn. They urged me to return home, to entrust the matter to professionals, but departure felt like betrayal. An unexpected sense of responsibility had taken root. I owed Clara Bellwether the seeing through of this nightmare. So I remained. I volunteered with the search parties the following day and the day after. For a week, we meticulously combed that section of forest, finding nothing. No definitive clues, no fresh tracks, no sign of the missing woman. The official narrative began to solidify. Clara Bellwether, lost, had likely succumbed to the elements. My encounter with the bearded man was subtly relegated to the realm of hallucination, a byproduct of dehydration and panic. But the certainty of what I saw, what I heard, remained unshaken within me. 6 months have now passed. I reside in a small town bordering those very woods. Weekends find me traversing the trails, never alone, always equipped with something more substantial than a pocket knife. I've become a local fixture, perhaps an object of curiosity. The urban transplant haunted by sylvan phantoms. Yet, it isn't phantoms I pursue, but answers, because sometimes, when the wind sighs through the pines in just the right way, I fancy I can detect a muffled cry adrift on the breeze. And I know with a certainty that settles deep in my bones that Clara Bellwether is still out there. So is her captor. And someday, my search will end. Until that day arrives, I will continue to walk these paths. I will continue to listen. And I will carry always the memory of the day I stumbled upon that abandoned car. The day I learned that true monstrosities don't always lurk in shadowed corners or childhood closets. Sometimes they wait patiently in places of perceived sanctuary, emerging when we feel most vibrantly alive, most free. And when confronted, a choice presents itself: flee or stand fast. I fled that day in the woods, but the running is over. Now, I am ready to stand. The river town, nestled grey and quiet along the water's edge, became my reluctant haven. Not a metropolis, certainly, but a place promising solitude for work, a retreat from noise. The house I claimed stood on a street lined with venerable maples, a two-story structure worn smooth by time, possessing floors that groaned underfoot and an air of dignified decay. It held secrets I suspected, particularly within the unfamiliar territory of its cellar, a space I'd relegated, upon first cursory glance, to the purgatory of unpacked boxes and future, half-hearted renovation plans. Weeks dissolved into the rhythm of settling in, the mundane ballet of furniture arrangement and box disposal. The cellar door remained mostly shut, guarding its cool, subterranean breath, thick with the scent of aged earth and forgotten things. The perfume, I told myself, of authenticity. Then, stillness fractured, deep in the marrow of the night, suspended between wakefulness and sleep. A sound prized my eyes open, faint yet insistent. A scritching, dragging noise from the house's foundations, like stone complaining against stone, or something heavier being laboriously shifted. My pulse hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Silence rushed back in, thick and absolute. The house settling, I reasoned, ancient timbers groaning. But the explanation felt hollow, a flimsy shield against burgeoning unease. And then it returned, a soft rhythmic abrasion, methodical, originating unmistakably from below. Bare feet met cold floorboards. A prickle traced my spine as I descended the main staircase, navigating the shadowed geography of the hallway. Only the kitchen's anemic bulb offered sanctuary from the gloom. A breath held and released before my hand closed on the cellar doorknob. Opening it unleashed the subterranean chill. The damp, musty exhalation intensified, clinging like a shroud. My fingers, clumsy with apprehension, found the switch. A lone, inadequate bulb flickered to life, casting a weak puddle of light at the stairhead, leaving the depths untouched. Anyone there? The question emerged as a threadbare whisper, swallowed instantly by the waiting quiet. I strained, listening into the void, hearing only the low thrum of the house's own ancient life. Absurd. My imagination overstimulated by solitude and shadow. I retreated, securing the door, the disquietude a stubborn residue clinging to my thoughts as I climbed back towards the fragile light. The following evening, amidst the flickering blue glow of the television, the sound resurfaced. That same soft, persistent friction, grinding its way up from the cellar. I silenced the manufactured drama on screen, every nerve straining towards the floorboards. A distinct cadence this time, less random drag, more purposeful movement. My heart stuttered. Standing, muscles coiled tight, I drifted towards the cellar door, a moth drawn to a dubious flame. My hand hovered inches from the knob, a war raging within. Primal instinct screaming retreat, morbid curiosity demanding entry. The door swung inward, releasing that potent wave of subterranean air, now carrying an almost metallic tang beneath the dampness. The weak bulb ignited, illuminating the precipice of the descent. Is someone down there? My voice, thin and reedy, quivered in the heavy air. Only the profound silence answered. One hesitant step, then another, each footfall punctuated by the weary complaint of old wood. Reaching the bottom, I scanned the dim expanse. Just my neglected boxes slumped against the far wall, skeletal remains of forgotten furniture draped in shadow. Yet, the air itself felt occupied, thick with an unseen weight. A palpable presence seemed to coalesce in the unlit corners, observing. A cold dread, sharp and invasive, crawled up my neck. I backed away, ascending the stairs with clumsy haste, the heavy thud of my own heart echoing in my ears. The door clicked shut, the lock snicked home, a futile gesture against a feeling that had already breached the boundary, the chilling certainty that I shared this space. Night after night, the unseen activity intensified. The scraping evolved, joined now by the slow, ponderous tread of footsteps pacing the concrete floor below, back and forth, deliberate, mapping the confines of the cellar. Then came the whispers, faint susurrations that brushed against the edge of hearing, unintelligible yet intimate, raising the fine hairs on my arms. Sleep became a besieged fortress. Lights burned through the night, doors were bolted, windows secured, but the sounds permeated these flimsy defenses. The scraping, the measured tread, the sibilant murmurs, a nightly symphony of dread. I lay rigid in bed, pulse frantic, imprisoned by a fear that stole breath and movement. One particular night, frayed nerves finally snapped. Exhaustion warred with terror, the gnawing uncertainty becoming unbearable. Was it delusion, born of isolation and suggestion? Or was there truly something inhabiting the lower level of my home? Clutching a heavy flashlight, its beam trembling in my unsteady grip, I approached the cellar door. A final moment of profound hesitation, staring at the wood grain as if it held answers, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. A deep, shuddering breath, the lock turned, the door groaned open. The flashlight beam sliced through the oppressive darkness, painting a stark white circle on the dusty steps. Down I went, each creak magnified, the flashlight sweeping across the familiar landscape of boxes and derelict furniture. Empty. Still. But then, my gaze snagged on an anomaly. Tucked away in a far corner, near the damp streaked foundation wall, a patch of darkness marred the pale concrete. Not shadow, but substance. I edged closer, the beam tightening on the spot. It was wet, viscous, darkly crimson, catching the light with a repellent sheen. Fresh, kneeling, my hand instinctively reaching, then recoiling as an icy wave washed through me. Blood. A strangled gasp escaped my lips. I scrambled backward, sweeping the light frantically across every recess, every shadow-laden nook. Nothing. No source, no explanation. Only the chilling, undeniable stain. Panic seized me. Up the stairs I blundered, slamming the heavy door, fumbling with the lock. The metallic click echoing the frantic hammering in my chest. Keys, phone, essentials snatched in a blind flight. Out into the cool night air, the car engine roaring to life, carrying me away from the house and its unspeakable secret. I sought refuge with Maya, spilling the fragmented, terrified story, the words tumbling out in a breathless rush. Her expression held sympathy, laced with skepticism, a look that deepened my isolation. I saw what I saw. I heard what I heard. Daylight brought a fragile courage, bolstered by Maya's presence. Together, we returned, venturing into the cellar, determined to confront the evidence. We searched methodically, examining every inch of the concrete floor, but the corner, previously marred by that dark, wet stain, was now immaculately clean, utterly unremarkable, as if it had never been. Weeks later, I moved, abandoning the house and its oppressive atmosphere. The feeling of being watched, the memory of that stain, refused to fade. What resided in that cellar? Was it a phantom of the house's long history, or a phantom of my own frayed mind? I carry no definitive answer. Only the lingering chill, the indelible memory of unseen presence. And sometimes, in the deepest hours of the night, when silence reigns, I hear it still. The ghost of a footstep on concrete, the dry whisper of something dragging itself through darkness, murmurs just beyond comprehension, forever crawling beneath my skin. The phone jolted against my ribs at 3 a.m., a low thrum against the silence. I lay marooned on the living room couch, sleep an elusive shore as my thoughts churned. A relentless tide of crumbling plaster, sagging foundations, and the delicate art of selling history without revealing its costly burdens. That's my trade, breathing life into time-worn houses, persuading buyers that character outweighs the inevitable repairs. Tonight, though, restlessness held me captive. Its screen flared, painting the darkness with an alien glow. An unfamiliar number swam into focus, truncated, formatted like no number I knew. A knot tightened in my chest. Rubbing grit from my eyes, I squinted. The text was stark. "Do you see me?" Below it, an attachment beckoned. My thumb, hesitant, tapped. An image bloomed. The Hawthorne place, a brooding Victorian downtown I'd been struggling to move for months. Roof shot, wiring a fossilized relic, yet possessed of that intricate gingerbread trim certain romantics adore. But the photo rendered it grotesque. Perspectives warped, the structure seeming to buckle inward. Every window was a black void, save one on the second floor. There, stark against the gloom, stood a figure. Featureless, tall, unnervingly still, less human, more effigy. A glacial prickle crawled over my skin. My arms went cold. 3:02 a.m. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. My instinct screamed to block the sender, but my hands betrayed me. Trembling so violently, the phone slipped, clattering onto the coffee table. Snatching it back, fumbling through menus with clumsy digits, I finally stabbed the block command. Then, forcing myself prone again, I stared into the oppressive ceiling, willing oblivion until, eventually, it came. Morning found me stiff, unrested. I dressed mechanically, drove to the small office, just myself and the receptionist, and brewed coffee, the ritual failing to ground me. My eyes kept flicking to the phone, a silent harbinger on the desk. Around 9, succumbing to a morbid curiosity, I sought a reverse lookup. No tech savant, I still knew the shadowed corners of the web where such things could be probed. The bizarre number yielded only digital shrugs. Invalid, disconnected. No surprise there. Then deeper digging unearthed a phantom echo. A 50-year-old newspaper snippet linking the number to a long-defunct local enterprise, specialists in antique furniture restoration. Bristol & Sons, the name read, shuttered decades ago. The line should be dust. My breath hitched, sweat beaded on my forehead. A prank, I insisted inwardly. Sophisticated spoofing, bored teenagers mimicking ghost signals. I plunged back into listings, scheduled a showing elsewhere, lost myself in the necessary cadence of calls. By noon, the strange text felt almost manageable, a fleeting anomaly in a life already burdened by dwindling sales figures and the looming need for a commission. Post-lunch, jacket slung over my arm, I drove to the Hawthorne place. A potential buyer meeting. The house squatted on its quiet, tree-lined street, the neglected yard erupting in weeds that fractured the pavement. Waiting on the cracked porch steps, I felt the minutes stretch. No one arrived. My call to the buyer shunted straight to voicemail. Involuntarily, my gaze drifted upward, snagging on that second-floor window. In the flat daylight, the house looked merely tired, paint peeling, shutters askew. Ordinary decay. Unlocking the heavy front door unleashed a breath of must, stale air thick with the scent of aged wood and time. I paced the echoing rooms, footsteps loud on bare floors, scanning for vandalism. Silence, but for the distant drone of traffic pausing in the cavernous living room, floorboards groaning beneath my weight. The image of the figure surged back. A knot tightened in my gut. I realized I was holding my breath, swallowed hard, and forced myself toward the stairs. 3 bedrooms huddled on the second floor. 2 starkly empty, the third held remnants of a past occupant. A scarred dresser, a stained sagging mattress slumped against the wall. Its window surveyed the street below. Stepping closer, I peered out, bright sun, a gentle breeze stirring the leaves of the ancient oak dominating the front yard. Mundane, normal, taking a shaky breath, I retreated downstairs, locked the heavy door behind me, and fled. Later that afternoon, across town, another house, another client. This one, a sturdy early 20th century craftsman. Decent yard, welcoming porch. As we toured its rooms, my phone vibrated against my leg. A glance confirmed my dread. The same impossible number. I ignored it, focusing on the showing, pointing out features to the older gentleman seeking an investment property. We discussed roofing liabilities, foundation whispers. My phone buzzed again. I fought to keep my expression neutral. After he departed, I sank onto the porch steps, the afternoon sun warm on my face. Hesitantly, I opened the messages. 2 awaited. The first, "I'm still here." The second held another photo. My blood ran cold. It was this very craftsman, but plunged into night. A sickly pale light emanated from the windows, revealing dark, indistinct shapes pressed against the glass from within, like faces submerged in murky water. My hands shook. My throat felt scraped raw. The hairs on my neck prickled. I scanned the tranquil street, half expecting to see a lurking photographer. Nothing, just passing cars. Oblivious normalcy. Impulsively, I dialed the number. It rang once, a single piercing tone, then lapsed into an unnerving silence. No connection, no rejection, just nothing. My stomach churned. Grabbing my bag, I locked the craftsman, the click of the deadbolt echoing too loudly. The drive back was fraught, my eyes glued to the rear-view mirror. Every following car, a potential pursuer. My foot pressed the accelerator with unconscious urgency. Evening found me barricaded at home. The kitchen table, my command center. Laptop open, I chased digital ghosts, seeking more on Bristol and Sons restoration. Old archives offered faint traces, notices of operation, a change of address, then abrupt silence around the 50-year mark. No scandals, no dramatic closures, just evaporation. A weary sigh escaped me as I rubbed my temples. Then, the buzz. I nearly sent my water glass flying as I snatched the phone. Why did you leave? The accompanying photo stole my breath. It showed the craftsman's living room, the one I'd stood in hours before, but horrifically distorted. Walls seemed to curve, corners bending unnaturally. In one shadowed recess lurked a shape, vaguely humanoid but blurred, indistinct. Clammy sweat broke out on my palms. My heart hammered, a frantic drum against my ribs. I scanned my own living room, suddenly alien and menacing. Silence amplified. I yanked the curtains closed, tried to regulate my ragged breathing. I powered off the phone, severing the connection. A useless gesture, I suspected, but necessary. For long minutes, I sat frozen, pulse thrumming. Eventually, propelled by adrenaline, I made a circuit of the apartment, checking locks, securing windows. A fragile layer of security settled, but the feeling of being watched remained, an invisible pressure against my skin. The next morning, I bypassed the office and went straight to the phone company's local branch. After an interminable wait, a representative listened with professional detachment as I explained, showing her the phantom number. Her fingers danced across the keyboard. A frown. Deactivated long ago, she confirmed. Spoofing. Possible, she conceded with a shrug, but complex. Tracing the texts? Not without law enforcement involvement. My chest tightened. Defeated, I thanked her and left. Outside, the cool air felt good. The bustle of the street a flimsy shield. An idea sparked. Elias Vance, the local historian who'd helped me trace property lineages before. Maybe he knew something about Bristol and Sons, something beyond dry records. His cramped office in the old municipal building smelled of dust and aging paper. He listened, perplexed, then rummaged through brittle files. Nothing new. Located near the historic district, closed 50 years prior. No known heirs, no whispers of tragedy or scandal. Another dead end. Back at my office, a note lay on my desk. My receptionist, eyes wide, had scribbled that a client cancelled their upcoming showing. No clear reason given. My attempt to call them back went unanswered. Then, inevitably, the vibration. The same number. Check your email. My stomach twisted. How? I hadn't shared my email. With trembling fingers, I opened my inbox. A single new message, subject line blank. Inside, I see you. And a photo, my office building, snapped from across the street. My car parked at the curb. The familiar brick facade suddenly looked sinister. A strangled gasp escaped me. I scrambled to the window, yanking the blinds aside, scanning the street below. Pedestrians ambled past, faces indifferent. No one held a phone aloft. No camera lens glinted. My hands felt like ice. I snapped the blinds shut, plunging the office into gloom. The rest of the workday dissolved into a fog of unfocused anxiety. The ghostly images replaying behind my eyes. I typed a defiant reply to the email. Who are you? Sent. Silence. Late afternoon shadows were lengthening when I found myself driving back to the Hawthorne place. drawn by a desperate need I couldn't articulate. To check again, to find a rational explanation. A hidden entry point, signs of a trespasser, anything other than the spectral. My heart hammered against my ribs as I parked. The air hung heavy under a bruised sky. The house loomed, secretive, lifeless, keys trembling. I opened the door, the familiar musty odor enveloping me. Flashlight beam slicing through the twilight dimness. I began a slow, methodical sweep. Closets yielded only dust bunnies. Empty rooms echoed my ragged breathing. Floorboards groaned their ancient complaints. Upstairs again, the third bedroom, the desolate furniture. I pulled open the dresser drawers. Empty, prodded the stained mattress. Nothing. A cold shiver traced my spine. Then, a faint buzz from my pocket. I fumbled for the phone. A new text. Behind you. Ice flooded my veins. I spun, flashlight beam slashing wildly. Empty wall, bare floor, my pulse roared in my ears. Heart pounding, I backed into the hallway, sweeping the light into every corner, every shadow. Vacant, utterly vacant, sweat slicked my temples. Jaw clenched, I stumbled down the stairs, burst through the front door, slammed it shut, locked it. I stood on the porch, gasping for air, the wood cool beneath my trembling hands. Another buzz, another photo, the hallway I had just fled, my own back visible in the frame, flashlight beam cutting the gloom, captured the instant I turned. As if the photographer had stood inches away, dizziness washed over me. My legs threatened to buckle. I gripped the railing, mind reeling. Call the police? And say what? That a ghost was texting me from a 50-year-old dead number. It sounded insane. Yet the photos, the impossible proximity. I drove away, hands welded to the steering wheel, vision blurred. Not the office, not that house. Home, locked door, every light blazing against the encroaching dusk. 7 p.m. The phone lay silent on the table, a coiled threat. Restlessness propelled me into pacing, circling the confines of my living room like a caged animal. Later, at the kitchen table, I tried to impose order on the chaos, scribbling notes, the texts, the warped photos, the specific houses, the defunct number, Bristol and Sons restoration. A pattern felt tantalizingly close. All properties were old, historically significant, unsold. Each photo featured distortions, shadowy figures. Around 9, it lit up again. My heart leaped. You can't hide them forever. Attachment. I tapped, dread coiling low in my stomach. A picture of the Tudor-style house I'd just listed that morning, on the edge of town. Pitch black windows, and in one, a tall silhouette. A detail sharpened into focus. The faint outline of a hand pressed against the glass from the inside. My breath hitched. A decision point. This couldn't be ignored, couldn't be rationalized away. I sat on the couch, phone clutched tight, waiting. The urge to call someone, anyone, was overwhelming. But who would believe this? My stomach twisted, muscles aching with sustained tension. My apartment, once a refuge, felt small, exposed. I cranked the AC, the cool air doing little to quell the internal fire of fear. No more texts arrived that night. Sleep was fragmented, punctuated by phantom noises from the hallway, by visions of distorted rooms and faceless watchers. My alarm at 6 a.m. was a physical blow. Head throbbing, eyes gritty, I checked the phone. Nothing. Now I sit here, coffee cooling, heart a frantic bird against my ribs. The clock ticks, each second an eternity, waiting for the next notification. The connection between the number, the houses, the defunct business remains opaque, but the message is brutally clear. Stop selling them. Why? I don't know. My body is a knot of tension. My hands tremble as I lift my mug. Focus is impossible. I've made a decision. I'm pulling the listings, all the old ones. I'll fabricate excuses for my clients, tell them I need time. Whether this appeases the sender or merely delays the inevitable, I don't know. But I cannot endure more photos, more spectral intrusions. My phone lies face down on the table beside me. The silence is almost worse than the buzzing. Am I safer now, or simply waiting in a different kind of limbo? I look out my window. The world proceeds, oblivious. Cars glide past, people walk dogs. But the normalcy feels like a thin veneer over something dreadful. The images are seared into my mind. Warped walls, shadowy figures, the chilling sense of being observed. My back still prickles where I felt that presence in the Hawthorne House hallway. What comes next? I only know I'm finished with historic properties. Condos maybe, soulless commercial buildings, anything without ghosts in its wiring. The commission doesn't matter now. Only escape. I keep glancing towards my apartment door, half expecting a figure to materialize with a camera. The air feels thick, heavy. My own heartbeat is a deafening drum. This is my reality now, trapped in silent tension, perpetually braced for the next violation. My phone remains inert. I lack the courage to turn it over. I'm just waiting. That's the story. All of it. I don't know if it ends here, but the feeling of being watched is a physical weight. It crawls on my skin, even now, alone in the quiet. That's everything. And I have no idea what else to do.